Well, good morning. We had a good rest last night. You ready for a nice full day? You get to listen to my angelic voice all day. Oh boy, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. I want to mention this morning, talk a little bit about weakness before we get going here. You know, in all my travels from place to place, all around the world, I've never met one great Christian. I've never met one. I've never met a great man or a great woman of God. And I've traveled all around, and I've met some big-name Christians, and I've never met one great man or woman of God. But I have met weak men and women who believed in a great God. And that's the difference. I'm weak. I couldn't do it. As I was telling you last night, when I took that sabbatical and went and worked in the oil patch with those guys, and I thought I was going to prove to the Lord, I can live this without being in ministry. I can do this. Well, God wanted me to show me something different, that I couldn't do it. And He wanted me to show that. And I remember about 2 months after I left that job, I worked that oil patch job for about 1.5 years, and God called me back into pastoral ministry in a local church. And about 2 months later, I was talking to the Lord about that. And the Lord said to me, "Do you know why I had you there?" And I said, "Yes, Lord." Because He wanted to show me that He uses this to keep me near to Him. You see, and people will look at me and they'll make certain assumptions. Wow, he must be a great man of God. He travels around. God is using him from place to place. He's speaking, sharing Christ all around the world. He must be some great man. And yet they don't realize I'm a weak man. I'm the weakest of us all. It takes others to feed my family. It takes others to pay my bills. It takes others to fly me over here so I can speak. It takes others to put me up in their place so I have a bed to rest. It takes others to feed me. I'm the weakest of us all. I can't do it. I can't do any of it. I'm a weak man. But when you discover this truth and this revelation, that His power is only made perfect in your weakness, for every place that you admit you're weak, He will then become your strength. See, remember Paul talking about that? He said, 3 times I prayed, God, would you take this thorn out of my flesh? Would you make this problem go away? Would you take my wife away from me? No, just kidding. Would you take this problem away? 3 times he prayed. And God said to Paul, He says, Paul, why would I do that? Why would I do that? Is my grace not sufficient for you, Paul? Do you not know? Have you not yet discovered? Has it not been revealed to you that my power is made perfect in your weakness? For every place you admit you're weak, then I will become your strength. And I come here as a weak man. I have nothing to give to you, but I have everything to give to you. In and of myself, I cannot bring a lift in your spirit. But as Christ flows so perfectly and so powerfully through me to you, and I come as just a witness to what's always been in you, there will be a peace that'll come, a joy that you'll recognize, a joy that Peter says is an inexpressible and glorious joy. Words cannot even express the joy that we have. This issue of weakness. In Matthew chapter 11, it was a revelation to me a number of years back. Jesus says this, "Come unto me, all who are strong, perfect, and have it all together, and I'll give you rest." No, what does it say? "Come unto me, all who are weak, weary, and heavy burdened. Then I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, for my burden is light." You see, we need to come in weakness. If you're saying today, I can, then God will let you suffer a little longer. Until you say, Uncle, Uncle. He's just waiting for us to cry, Uncle. I give up. And that was the point that God brought me to, right to the end. I mean, I was having a nervous breakdown. I remember my wife and I, when I was at the end of myself, before I went on a sabbatical break from pastoral ministry, we were driving by a mental institute. And on the billboard it said Mental Health Week. I said to my wife, "You better drop me off." I can't do it. And the Lord was simply waiting for me to say those words. I can't. And then he whispered, finally, I never said you could. I said I can, and I always said I would. Live my life in through you. Man doesn't work without Christ, and the Christian doesn't work when he doesn't recognize the life that he has in him. See, have you tapped into this life? Do you understand what life you have living in you? Have you tapped into that? It says that we have the mind of Christ. Have you ever thought about what that means? You have the wisdom of the ages living in you. All wisdom. Only you haven't recognized it yet. And that's why I say we're not a weed becoming an oak tree. As you go along in life, maturity is simply choosing Jesus sooner and staying with him longer. That's all it is. But we define Christian maturity in so many different ways. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit more. You know, what really vexes me, because I'll talk to the stay-at-home mom who works hard all day, looking after the kids, and she'll be listening on the radio to a big-name Christian speaker. And she'll listen to him and listen to his travels and the way he preaches and the way he expresses Christ and the thousands that have come to the Lord through his ministry. And she's sitting there working with the kids at home, and here's what she says. I wish I could have a ministry like that. Boy, I wish I could share Christ like this person does. And it vexes me because now what she's done is she's wrongly defined what spirituality is. Now that may be the result of spirituality. It may be, but it may not be. How do I know if that person is spiritual or not? You don't get to know whether a person is spiritual by listening to them preach or speak. I promise you, you come live with me for a month. You'll see my flesh come out. Have you ever done life with that person? The woman from Africa, who God called her out from the trenches of life, living in the ghettos. And she heard one word, Matthew 10, Matthew 10. And so she went and she found a pastor who shared with her what Matthew 10 says. And the woman started hundreds of thousands. So it was about 100,000 churches in Africa. Now, was she spiritual? Was she? I mean, she started hundreds of thousands of churches. Well, we would say she's spiritual, wouldn't we? But how do I know? I've never done life with the woman. You see, we are always looking for the result of spirituality and define it as spirituality. And as long as we're looking to the results of spirituality, we'll never discover what spirituality is because we're always looking to the results. What is spirituality? What does it mean to be spiritual? What does it mean to be a Christian? Matthew 5-7, which is often called the Sermon on the Mount. I like to call it the life on the Mount or the man on the Mount. You read in there and you'll discover what spirituality is. It's for the meek, for the humble, for those who long, hunger, and thirst for righteousness. You read through there and there's spirituality. And who can attain? Who can live out Matthew 5-7? Who can do that? I say, bless those who curse you and do good to those who hate you. Who can do that? I say, he who even looks at a person with lustful eyes has committed adultery in their heart. Well, guys, how you doing in that department? Who can do that? And we make the list at what we have to do to be spiritual. But Jesus was raising the bar so high, so we finally say, Uncle, I can't do it. I'll tell you what spirituality is. It's a person. It's not a place. It's God's plan right from the beginning, and his name's Jesus. He is spirituality. There's only one man who's ever lived the Christian life, and his name's Jesus. He's the only one who ever did it. Christ was man as God always intended man to be. But none of us could live that life that he lived. He overcame everything that we couldn't. And he's come into you to live that life in through you. Amen. That's the good news of the gospel. I need this life. living in through me, because I can't do it. I'm a weak man, but I'm a weak man with a great God. He is who's great. Amen? You will never, ever, ever, I promise you this here in this conference. I can promise you this. You will never, ever fail at your point of weakness. You'll only fail where you think you're strong. And you're only as weak as your strongest link. And you're only as strong as your weakest link. I hear this so often. Well, I hope God uses me despite my weakness. No, no, no. God doesn't use you despite your weakness. He uses you because of your weakness. Because His power is only made perfect in your weakness. Amen. I was telling somebody, I was speaking in Peru this earlier on this year, and I was in Arequipa, and I started this one in this one church there. I forget what it was called even. It was in Spanish, so none of us would. Unless some of you speak Spanish, I don't. I even need an interpreter. See, I need a voice everywhere I go. I can't even speak. And I just started sharing all my weaknesses, and I gave a break. I said, now, anybody who doesn't want to come back, you don't want to hear from this failure and this weak man, you're free to go. Well, you know, the place was even more filled than before it started. Well, now, why is that? Because all of us are failing. All of us have weakness. But we're projecting an image that we want everybody to believe about us. I want you to see, but I don't want you to see. I want you to come close, but not too close. And the pastor came up to me after and he said, I've never had anybody start a message that way before. And I said, but I'd like to hear more. We are weak. We need a God. But have you come to discover that? And by the end of this conference, I don't want you saying to me, Chad, I'm a stronger Christian. I want you to say, Chad, I'm a weaker Christian. But a weak Christian with a great God. He is who is my strength. Amen. Amen.